One consequence of Adam and Eve's sin was that they fell under God's condemnation, suffering the type of judicial death we mentioned earlier. And Paul's teaching about spiritual life and death in Romans chapter 8, verse 10 indicates that they died spiritually and condemned all their natural descendants to the same fate. Further, as we read in Genesis chapter 3, verses 22 through 24, God cast them from His presence in the Garden of Eden. And because of their sin, creation itself was put in bondage to corruption.
What the effect of Adam's sin was is fundamentally to open the door for evil. Their sin let evil into the world, and as a result of that, everything is infected by evil, everything is undermined by evil, and in particular, the purposes of God are derailed by evil. So it affects humanity, our bodies, our minds. It affects the very fabric of creation, so that it is subject, as Romans 8 says, to frustration, longing for its own restoration. And of course, relationally, it affects our relationships with one another as humans, but most significantly, our relationship with God. And so evil becomes the problem that needs to be solved. And while it just took one act of disobedience to open the door for evil, it's a little bit like unscrambling an egg. It's a big job to undermine evil which has seeped in so deeply into the created order. That's why the act of Adam and Eve's sin takes just a few lines in the Bible, but the act of undoing it takes well over 1,000 pages.
Despite all the terrible consequences of humanity's sin, God didn't kill our first parents outright. He left them physically alive. And more than this, God extended benevolence to them in their new state of sin. For instance, He implicitly restored them to spiritual life, as evidenced by His assumption that they would raise their children in faith, and by Eve's expressions of faith in Genesis chapter 4, verses 1 and 25. Beyond this, God promised to send a Redeemer to rescue them from all the consequences of their sin. This promise appears in God's curse against the serpent, who had tricked Eve into eating the forbidden fruit. Listen to God's words to the serpent in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15. "I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your offspring and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel."